When did a feeling of we need to get out of here immediately save you? My mom's bad feeling might have saved me as an infant. She was walking with me in a stroller down her suburban neighborhood street. She says she started to feel a tingling feeling like she was being watched. So she decided to turn around and head back home. A few streets later, she noticed a car driving slowly behind her. The driver, a man, starting at her and me. She starts walking a bit faster and notices he drives a bit faster to keep up. So she gets really scared. Before she can start running, this is the 90s and she didn't have a cell phone. He rolls down the window and tells her not to run or stop because she's being stalked by a coyote. He saw her safely to our doorstep and then pointed out the coyote, who had followed us half a mile and looked rangy and desperate. It had been slipping from brush to brush, looking for an opening. So glad for her intuition and the stranger's help. When I was 17, I used to go jogging early in the mornings. My then boyfriend lived about 7 blocks down the road, so I'd jog to his house. Then we'd loop around a park together before heading back to our respective homes. I started noticing a guy sitting in his car in the park, watching us run. After a week of this, I'd see the same guy along my jogging route close to my house, in addition to him being at the park. He'd sit in his car and watch me run, drive to the park, then watch me some more. My boyfriend thought I was being paranoid about it all. One morning it was really foggy out. I started to cross the street, and as I was almost across, someone turned their headlights on bright and it blinded me. Instead of going forward, I stopped and walked backwards towards my house. As my eyes adjusted, I could see that the man who'd been watching me was standing next to his car with the trunk popped open. I noped out of there and went home. I never jogged there again. I reported it to the police. My BF's stepdad insisted, but they didn't seem to care. 2 years later, a 16-year-old girl was kidnapped, stuffed into a trunk, then driven out to the countryside. She was beaten, raped, and left there naked. By the description of the man in the car, I knew it was done by the same guy who watched me jog. They never caught him. Took my friend out for a drink. First time she had been out since having her daughter 12 weeks earlier. Had a round, then I went to the restroom. Came back to find her having shots at a table with this random dude. Random dude looked at me and I felt flayed alive. Nothing in his eyes but malice. I grabbed my friend's hand, said loudly, "We are leaving now." We left immediately. I went back the next day to pay the tab we walked out on, and the bartender told me that same man was arrested for attacking a woman outside of the bar. I was about 11 or 12 years old at a neighbor's house. The sun had already set. It wasn't completely dark yet, but it was close, and there was less light by the second. We were sitting on the lawn because we loved watching the sky turn from day to night, just talking and giggling and carrying on as little girls do. A truck drove up our street, slower than usual, but not suspiciously slow. Still, I felt my gut sink for some reason I didn't understand. A couple minutes later, it passed by again, and then again after another few minutes, though not quite as slow this time. I was 100% positive it was the same truck, so I watched it drive away and noticed it started slowing down. I told her to get up, and when the truck made another U-turn and started heading towards us again, I told her to run and hide. I don't know if she realized what she was hiding from, but we ended up splitting in 2 directions. She dove behind a bush, and I crouched behind an old car parked in their driveway. We could see each other, and I had a clear shot to the door if I needed to dart in to get a parent, but we heard the truck roll up and stop in front of her house. Someone got out of the truck and started calling for us. I honestly don't remember what they were asking though. We just kept our eyes locked and tried to stay as still and quiet as possible. We probably should have screamed, but I think we were both too scared. The person eventually got in their car and took off. We stayed hidden for what felt like forever, eyes locked, until we finally felt safe enough to run inside. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't notice something and we booked it, or if that person was actually dangerous or not, but I'm glad that I'll never find out. I made a somewhat late night trip to a convenience store that I knew carried wine. I used to work really odd hours, and sometimes late at night I'd finish my work and want to have a few drinks. As I was getting back in my truck, this young girl asked if I could give her a ride a few blocks back to her home. It was probably a bad idea to judge a book by its cover, but she was pretty young and dressed decently. Didn't act too weird or anything, so I figured okay. Well, I'm heading back and we get into a pretty rough part of town and she says turn left up here. Very dark street, whatever. I stop and she says she really appreciated the ride and wanted to do something for me. Asked if she could give me a BJ. I decline and start getting sketched out, like she needs to get out now. She gets out and closes the door, and as I drive away, two men dressed in dark clothing were just stepping towards the street and stared at me as I drove past. Pretty sure that would have ended with a gun in my face. That's what you get for being nice sometimes. A friend and I had just seen a midnight movie. It was about 2:30 a.m. when I pulled into a gas station to grab a Yoo-hoo. I grabbed the bottle, turned around, and saw three men enter the store together. One waited by the doors, one stood near the register looking at chips, and the third was crouched down with his back to the employee door so the cashier wouldn't see him through the square window in the door. They all look at me at once and then try to ignore me, acting like they're just casually positioned around the cashier and door. I walk up, put my Yoo-hoo on the counter. The cashier turns the scanner and basically tells me with his eyes, "You do it." I ring myself up, drop money on the counter, and walk as normally as I could past the man by the door and out to my car at what seemed like the furthest pump from the store. I sit down, throw my Yoo-hoo at my buddy, and hit the emergency button in my car that calls 911. I connect with dispatch and report a possible robbery. A mile or two later, I see a cop car flying down the street in the direction we just came. I called non-emergency the next day to ask what happened, and they said the men fled after I left, and the cashier told the police he knew he was about to get robbed too, and to thank me for calling the police. That felt good. What didn't feel good was my buddy, and all his nervousness about what was unfolding as he was listening to me recount everything to dispatch. Thought I just gave him a random Yoo-hoo and chugged that thing down like a starving infant with a bottle. Edit. Lots of people asking what Yoo-hoo is. It's a drink in the US that tastes like watery chocolate milk, but shut up, it's delicious. A couple years ago, I was walking home from the bar at 1 a.m. I'm a young woman in her 20s, so this was instantly stupid, but I wanted to save money avoiding an Uber and was also drunk, so I wasn't thinking straight. I'm walking down a main but dark street, and then a pickup truck driving by slows down next to me. Two men look at me and the passenger asks, "Hey, do you need a ride somewhere?" I lie and say no thanks because I'm expecting one in a moment. They said all right and drove off. I watched them drive down the street and then a ways down, I saw their brake lights light up. There was no stop sign or stoplight, so I just assumed the worst and thought, I've got to get out of here. I ran into a tiny parking lot to my right and hid behind an outdoor vending machine. Moments later, the two men pulled into the lot and circled it, clearly looking for me. When they couldn't find me, they drove away. I waited a few moments until I decided to call an Uber. My college roommate wanted to go to a hangout. I immediately knew something bad would happen, and I wouldn't let her go by herself, using the excuse that I would drive her so she wouldn't have to go into the city on her own and then not be able to get home. We get there. We're the only girls. She smokes some weed and has a beer, and she's completely on her ass. But she was a lightweight and crossfading does that. I, on the other hand, was approached by 3 different guys trying to convince me to drink or asking if I had a boyfriend or whatever. While the third one is talking to me, I see another guy go over and get a beer for me. I've already said I don't like beer. I'm driving. I'm not drinking, but he hands it to me and I'm just gonna have one sip to get them off my back. Screw top of the beer that should have been closed was already open. I pretended to take a sip and then set it down. The guy I'm talking to asks if I'm gonna drink more. I say no. Within 3 minutes, I had dragged my friend out of the house and had threatened to stab one of the guys with my keys if he didn't get out of my way and let me into my car. Screw top of the beer that should have been closed was already open. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.